What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking out the old K member, getting the rack and pinion out of there and all of that stuff in preparation for the UPR K member. That will be coming soon, probably in the next video we'll be installing that. I don't think we'll do the whole suspension at the same time, but hopefully we can do the coilovers and give you guys a little bit of a review on how I feel about that stuff. They claim that you'll save 64 pounds over the other one, and we're actually going to weigh that and see. I'm not sure if they mean just the K member alone saves the 64 pounds or overall by deleting, getting rid of your normal springs and going to coilovers, and your new A-arms or control arms and the K member all together save 64 pounds. We're going to look into that and see if that actually happens. But yeah. Before we get started, we need to clean up some of the garage because it is a bit of a mess. I haven't been out here in a while, and I did buy some tools on Black Friday, so we need to clean up in here, but let's get to it. Alright guys, so we got the garage cleaned up a little bit. We obviously still need to clean up that shelf a little bit more, and then that corner, and that is just full of junk right now. I need to go through and completely throw away a bunch of stuff. This stuff is going to be moved over here. I have a buddy that's renting a room, and a lot of this stuff over here is his, so we're going to be able to move all of that out once he moves out in the next couple of weeks. But enough of this, let's get into it. Alright guys, before we get into this, I want to get this sway bar removed off of here. It doesn't need to come off. It's just attached to the body by 4 bolts, 2 on each side. And it doesn't need to come out to get the K member out, but I want to get a chair inside here once we get all done, and I just don't want it in my way because I want to get a chair in here and work on getting this radiator out. I need to get the AC condenser out, some of these AC lines out, and then there's a few things I want to clean up, like they had a mount here for an intercooler pipe, and it's, bare metal, so I want to get that stuff cleaned up and repainted, along with right here where they had a nut clip on here, had a little bit of rubbed paint, so I'm going to clean it up. And then also we'll be doing a battery relocation, so it'll be easier just to sit in here. So yeah, let's get that removed and then we'll start working on this. These are 17 millimeters. Next, we're gonna get this spindle off of these control arms. I'm gonna get this cover pin off, and we can get this nut off. This nut here for this ball joint is a 27. Now we'll use this pickle fork on the ball joint with a good hammer. Alright, and then once you get there at the end of that, it'll just break free and your spindle will come off of your ball joint. And there's your wheel bearing assembly and spindle and dust shield. Alright guys, so we got everything underneath all cleaned up. So let's get into getting this rack off. First, we're going to get this power steering reservoir off and get some of these lines cleaned up and out of the way a little bit. And then we'll get the column here, the steering column, removed from the rack, and then we can unbolt it and pull it out and pull it off of that. Get this clamp taken off of this power steering reservoir so we can get this line off. There we are, got the power steering reservoir out. Alright, next we're going to remove this 13 right here off of the column to get this rack pulled off of it. Now I'm going to stick a screwdriver in the split here to try and spread this apart, because it's more or less a clamp onto some splines. So we're going to spread that apart, and then this should be able to be free once we remove the rack and pinion. Next up, we got to take this bolt out of here that holds the rack and pinion onto the K member. There's a, I believe it's a, yeah, it's an 18 millimeter on this side, and then a 15 millimeter, if you can even see it right there, on this side. And then same thing on this side. There's another 18 millimeter right there, and then a 15 millimeter on the back side. So I was actually able to, in this position, get this top one broke free. So I'm going to try and get this one off and then get the room to remove this one, just so I can get them out of the way before I remove this. If not, then we're just going to remove this and then try and get them off. But I didn't want to try and break those free because they are pretty tight. Once this was off of here, it's going to be a pain trying to hold on to this and that. So yeah, we're going to get those off. These are an 18 millimeter. So yeah. All right, we got the top one off and pulled out of the way, but that bottom one is just in too weird of a position to get off with the rack in here still. So we're gonna try and pull this out and see if we can get more access to that so we can get it off. Now this K-member's got like these two little perches on each side with grommets that kind of hold this rack and pinion onto it. So we should be able to just pry it off of there and get it out. All right, now we got it down and out of there. Now we're just gonna pull this line off here and it'll be free from the car. All right, so we got the rack and pinion out of the car. These are those grommets I was talking about. There's one on each side. One sits up against the K-member, and then one goes on the outside. Let's see it here, the outside of the rack and pinion. So you kind of just have to overcome the grip of those. But this thing will just pull out with a screwdriver. Don't move it around too much. It only goes in one way, but obviously if you spin the wheel, you can either break that clock spring, or it could be a pain in the ass to try and get that all lined up again. So it's just easier to not turn that, leave it alone, and then don't be turning this too much. But we're gonna get this thing cleaned up in a future video and get new inner and outer tie rods put on it. All right, so now we're gonna get the bolts that hold the K-member in on each side. We got the jack put up under there. I'm sure it's gonna come off a little bit crooked because it's so far forward, but there's not really an option to put it anywhere else besides right there. So we'll deal with it. I'm sure it's not too heavy, but there's a bolt right there, and then one in this back corner kind of hiding. And that's up inside of the spring perch. And then towards the back, there's two 15s right there. And those ones up there, I believe, are 18s. Look at the socket already. Yep. So the two front ones are 18s, and then these two back ones are 15s. So we'll get those removed. These have little clip nuts that sit up top and are supposed to clip into this ledge here. Looks like this. This is the other side. This one actually spun on me, so you can get a wrench on this. This is 21, so I'm gonna put a wrench on there so I can pull that one off without it messing up that clip nut, so we can put it back on how it was before. And there's that bolt and the other clip nut. As you can see, well, you can kind of see it's loose on this side. So let's go to the other side, get that side off, and then we'll be able to drop this thing out of here. The time lapse didn't really show too well, but the second that I took that last bolt out, it pretty much just dropped to the ground and slightly fell off of the jack. The jack didn't really do much, but this doesn't really weigh a whole lot. If I was gonna do it again, I'd probably stick a board underneath of this to get that backside, because it was just too back heavy. And the second that you take that back bolt out, it just wants to fall down. But just word for the wise, use a board across there. It's not super heavy, so it's not really that big of a deal, but just be easier to get the jack a little more centralized. But we got it out of there. All right, guys, so we got that K-member out of the car. Right there it is. You can see it's empty in there now. I was gonna do a little bit of a review slash just weigh those two in this video, but I think we're gonna do a separate video since this one took a little bit longer than I was anticipating. So here in a coming video, I'm actually gonna pull that out of the box, go into a little bit more in-depth review. I'm gonna weigh the two of them, see if you actually save that 64 pounds that UPR claims. I hope it does. I hope it saves a little bit more, because I don't know if they're talking about just the K-member or the control arms and the K-member together, because the control arms that are on there right now, they're a little bit big. They don't weigh a lot, but the tubular A-arms or control arms should weigh a little bit less. But coming up, we're also going to be getting into this engine bay, getting stuff cleaned up, getting the trans harness figured out, getting the radiator pulled out, and cleaning up some stuff. So that's coming soon. If you guys like this content, want to see this Coyote right there, go into this car, subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys in the next video.